Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
Hey, my team and I are offering a 3-day intensive retreat in San Diego, California. This retreat is going to be so powerful and transformative. My team and I will show you how to discover yourself, your true potential, and help you find your path and purpose in life and uncover the warrior's courage that is within you. I literally put my heart and soul into this program, and the reason why you want this is because I will save you time and money from having to figure out all of this on your own. There are only 10 spots available for the retreat, so go to kfmretreat.com to learn more and apply for the program. Again, that's kfmretreat.com. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I am here with Will Arnold. He trains the Russian art of Systema and was actually introduced to me by a friend of mine, Sam Morris, who's actually been on this show as well. And he came out and supported the latest men's retreat that we just did here in July, and was very impressed with his way of communicating martial arts into your life. All right, so Will, happy to have you here.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Happy to be here.
All right, well, and as you know, we start off every show with a favorite success quote, some sort of saying that you've lived by, something that's helped you on your journey. So what do you got for us? And then share with us what that means to you.
Well, I was actually just talking with a friend about this the other day. He was basically sharing that he had a big, monumentous life decision to make and was trying to decide which direction to go. And I shared the earliest piece of mentoring advice I think I ever received, which was from a wrestling coach I had when I was very young. And he just pulled me aside one day and said, Will, I don't ever want to see you choose the path of least resistance, because there's no growth there. And it's been so true. I mean, throughout this whole experience, studying Systema and getting into other forms of meditation and awareness, we have to encounter our own resistance, and we have to see where we're holding that and how to let go of it in order to grow. And just deciding that I'm not going to shy away from that, and I'm going to choose the path of resistance because I know by getting through that, I will grow. It's really defined everything for me.
Yeah. So. This reminds me of also a guest I've had on the show, Ryan Holiday. He has this book called The Obstacle is the Way. Mm-hmm. And it's like if you choose the easy path, it's like it's going to lead you to what results you're going to get in life. If you go down, you can apply this to jobs, taking a corporate 9-to-5, the job that you can get versus going down this other path of the work or the job that you really, really want, the one that really speaks to you, which is going to be harder.
Yeah, exactly. And there are so many different philosophies that speak to this all around the world. And having that piece of advice as a young man growing up was wonderful.
Yeah.
And then having that validated recently with Systema, which, I mean, the core of that philosophy is that everything that happens to us in life, no matter if it's, wonderful, good, bad, or terrible, it's all inspired to give us the best set of circumstances to simply understand ourselves and grow. Yeah. And treating life that way, no matter what happens, it just opens up so many more doors and opportunities. It's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. It taps into that warrior spirit. And for you to have this at a young age where you're constantly, okay, this is tough, this is easy. Like, I'm taking the path of more resistance. I'm taking the path that's going to lead to more growth. I think it just makes you tougher. I think it just kind of beats you up at a young age. So, it becomes probably now in your life, just a part of your life. Like, you always want the path of least resistance. You always want to take the path that's a little bit harder with more resistance.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also, over time I've learned to feel what type of resistance is good and what is my actual, own intuition saying like, no, let's go a different direction this time. Yeah, it's just refining that and getting in touch with where life is pushing you and understanding where you need to go to grow and not being afraid to take the steps to actually do that.
All right. I like this. I like where we're going with this. And let's learn more about you. Instead of diving just straight into what you're doing now, like I want to know how you got started with what you do now. How did this whole story come together? The Russian art of Systema. This is, I've trained martial arts, and it's just not something you see or hear about every day. So, I'm interested kind of in the history too of how this came to you. Seems like only, an elite group of people know this martial art.
Yeah, well, honestly, the way it came to me, it feels guided, it feels inspired. And the reason was simply, I grew up as a martial artist. That's always been a part of my DNA. I can think back to early childhood videos of my brother and I at the beach when we were like 3 and 5, and he was building little sandcastles, and now he's an architect, and I was, battling waves with a stick, and now I'm a martial artist. And so I grew up wrestling, doing that, and was raised in northern Michigan, did the normal upper middle class, Midwest alpha male thing to do, and was captain of wrestling and debate and concert master for the orchestra, and went to University of Michigan and started working for Bank of America when I was 19. And about 6 years into working for the bank, I found myself in a place where I was just very unhealthy, like mentally, physically, spiritually, all of it. I didn't know what I was doing or why I was doing it. I was just trying to, the way I described it at the time was consume the happiness I couldn't find within myself. And as a result, I was 250 pounds, overweight, depressed, anxious, drinking way too much, just doing that work hard, play hard lifestyle because I didn't really have balance. And then I reached a point that it was just a wake-up call for me. I had an event where I realized if I keep this up, I'm not going to last 5 years, let alone 50. So it made me really dig down deep and say, why am I here? And I had to realize I didn't know. So the first step to answering that question was getting healthy again. And the first thing I did was decide I want to get physically healthy. And I'm not someone who enjoys running or lifting weights or going to a gym. I've been a martial artist, and I like that interaction with someone else and exploring my own perception of people and myself. So I decided, okay, I'll learn a new martial art. And I had always wanted to learn Russian, the language. That's one of my regrets from college. I did Latin instead of Russian. And I'm like, okay, so I'll find out if there are any Russian martial arts. And hopefully I'll learn that language along the way. And at that point, I just Googled Russian martial art. And I read a Wikipedia article about Systema. And the article was beautiful. I mean, everything in it about Vladimir and the history of the study, it sounded exactly like what I wanted to do. There were no moves, no techniques. It was a form of meditation. It has been used by the KGB and Spetsnaz and is now growing throughout the martial art community. But I'm reading this thinking, okay, this art has been known publicly for about 20 years. I really doubt they have it in Charlotte, North Carolina. And sure enough, I went to Vlad's website and did an instructor lookup. And I found a retired naval officer in Charlotte, North Carolina named Mark Jacobson and started training with him. And in about the first 6 months of that experience, I lost 50 pounds. And I didn't run or diet or lift weights. I just thought differently and moved differently. And then 6 months after that, any depression, anxiety, things I had just been holding on to since middle school, all of those symptoms started to just totally go out the window. And the years following that, it's been the most transformative healing experience I've ever had, which we can get into soon.
Yeah. Good story here. And how would you explain Systema to someone new? Like how does this differ from kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, like these traditional forms of martial arts that we're more aware of?
Right. Yeah. Great question. And I should probably start with like the brief history of Systema and what it actually is.
Yeah, do it.
So Systema, it is a very ancient Russian martial art. They believe it dates back to about the 9th century. And it was developed during a time when Russia was being invaded from everyone from every different direction during every different season. They didn't know, what fighting style they would face or when they would face it or where they would face it. And, Russia had as many martial arts as China or Japan or anywhere else. It was part of their culture. But Systema in particular was the one utilized by what we believe were their Bogadir, which were their hero knights, in order to respond to attackers from any sort of method of combat. And they worked alongside monks, Christian Orthodox monks, who would learn how to breathe and pray, similar to a lot of yogis or Zen studies or Buddhist practices, but definitely Christian Orthodox for them. And through that breath work and prayer, they were able to let go of their fear, which in turn let go of any physical tension, which in turn left the body totally free and able to spontaneously respond to anything in any environment. And this art form developed through Cossack and other traditions in Russia up until the Soviet Union became a major factor. And when the Soviets took over, they outlawed all martial arts and a lot of different national heritage and religion and culture in order to first get everyone to just basically confine themselves to a Soviet paradigm, and then second, in order to not teach the masses how to fight and think spiritually. And while that was happening, they militarized some of the ancient traditions, and Systema was pulled aside and reserved in particular for KGB and some elite units of their Spetsnaz, which are their special operations units. And the living tradition of this art begins with Michael Ryabko. He currently lives in Moscow. He was selected by the age of 5 and put through rigorous Systema training, and at the age of 15 was actively serving with the Spetsnaz. And then Michael selected Vladimir Vasilyev, and Vladimir worked, we believe, internally in the Soviet Union. He was a very elite Spets operator. And when the Soviet Union fell apart, he moved to Canada and sometime around 1993 began teaching classes in Toronto. And now it's totally blown up. The art, because of the way it's trained and the efficiency with which it can teach someone to let go and become mindful and calm in every type of combat situation, it's now not only used by KGB and Spets, but people on DevGru, our SEAL Team 6 use it, Green Berets, Marines, the full spectrum. And it's, at the moment, very much, I don't want to use, concentrated in the law enforcement and military and special forces communities, simply because of the efficiency and also the potency with which it is presented. It basically allows men and women to come in contact with their own fear and self-perception in a very real, fast, and honest way. And then also offers opportunities for healing.
I like this. And I want to know how you can take this art of Systema. What I'm getting from this is it can free you from fear. Mm-hmm. And in life, fear prevents us from doing a lot of things that we'd like to do.
Yeah.
So how can we take Systema? And also, I'm interested in how have you taken Systema and applied it into life, freeing yourself from fear to do the things that you want to do? Right.
Well, that's a great question. I think the first thing I should do is clarify that it doesn't completely free me from fear. I still feel fear. Every time, a gun goes off or a car horn honks or, someone sends me a nasty email or approaches me on the street and yells at me in some way, there's still that feeling of tension. My breathing stops for a second, my muscles get tense. Physically and mentally, I do recognize that fear. The practice of Systema is feeling it. And as soon as you feel it, our nervous system's response, we retrain it from holding on to that and focusing on it and staying tense or staying caught in the thought. And instead we breathe and immediately let that go and see the totality of the situation we're in, feel everything around us. And when that happens, all of a sudden, your awareness expands and we're able to see opportunities. So we're not caught with the fear. Instead, we're able to just move with it. And that is what allows us to avoid harm. So a physical demonstration of that would be, as someone is striking me, if I feel fear and tense up my muscles and stop my breathing, then when that strike contacts me, there is tension that greets it. And all a strike is a transfer of tension from one person to another. And in order to, actually facilitate and complete that transfer, I need to greet it with my own tension and hold on to it. And instead, if I breathe and let go, and even as I see the strike coming in, if I'm able to just let go of the fear of it, then when that strike reaches me, there's no tension to greet it, and it just passes through. It's what Bruce Lee was talking about with flowing like water. You just move with it, and there's no bruise, there's no impact, there's really no pain. And it's not being tough, it's simply letting go. Psychologically, it's the same thing. If someone comes up to me on the street, one of the ways I employ this meditation, just daily life at the moment, I'll take a few days a week and canvas for Greenpeace. And some people really don't like Greenpeace at all. And they'll come up to you and in a very loud, angry, violent way tell you that. And when that happens to me, I feel my breathing stop for a second. I feel my muscles get tense. But rather than get caught up in that moment, I simply feel that and understand that it's not my tension. It was just a psychological transfer. And I let go of it and take a deep breath and come back to my base state, which is relaxed and present. And then I'm able to see that person and actually see them, not just what they said to me, but the tension in their body, the furrow in their brow, the anger intensity in their voice. And rather than strike back at that, I can let go of it and greet it with even compassion. And by simply saying something is along the lines of, hey, I hear you, and it's not personal, I'm just here to talk to you. And responding to something like that, it just opens up so many more opportunities. And I've ended up having incredible interactions because of it. So all along the line, the study is basically, whether we approach it psychologically or physically, tension and fear, they're just things that keep us from existing in the present moment. It's our mind being caught up in planning for something, what we're going to respond with, how we're going to, show our pride or get vengeance or come out of a situation, or regretting something we did and being stuck up in what someone told us and being stuck in the past.
What happens to us when we are stuck in the past or when we're anxious about the future?
Yeah, well, I like to use that word. I like to describe it in my own life, from my own understanding. If I'm stuck thinking about the past, I'm feeling depressed. And if I'm stuck thinking about the future, I'm feeling anxious. And either way, I'm stuck in the narrative about a moment, my perception of it, that may not be entirely true. To use the concept we talk about quite openly in Systema, it's a delusion. It's believing something is there and getting our mind stuck on it. And then physically, it's also a delusion. We hold tension. We don't allow ourselves to relax. We see this all the time when someone's angry or stressed and, our shoulders tense up and our walking gets tight. You can hear us stomping from 100 feet away. That's unnecessary pain and anger and tension that we're holding into our bodies, and that's our choice. So by letting go of that and recognizing that it's an option, like I actually can let go of it, it frees me up to be in the present moment. And when that happens, I can see everything around myself. There is no fear, there is no tension, and there's always an opportunity there. I mean, at the end of the day, if I'm still alive, then I've done everything right up to that point. And there's always another option. That's what it does. I would really say it gives us perspective, or perspective, because otherwise we're really caught up in our own idea of reality and we're not existing in the real world. Does that make sense?
No, this is good. What this is bringing up to mind is I was recently speaking with a guy who was struggling with a breakup that he experienced. It was a serious relationship and long-term relationship. And I'm thinking wow, this Systema could really be something that could be applied into that situation right there for this man. He's stuck waking up thinking about the ex. At work, he's thinking about the ex. And then when he's going to bed, he's thinking about the ex and what he can do to try and make this happen. But he's been living like this for months, like a zombie, in pain and depressed and not living at all.
Yeah, and I've been there. I've been exactly there. Yeah. Spent at least a month or two at work when I was doing, or supposed to be doing, financial planning for Merrill Lynch. I was caught up in a ex-girlfriend who was going to drop out of school and move to a smaller college just to get away from, our fears and, And I had situations with parents, and I would spend all day long at my desk just sitting there thinking about this, brewing over it, feeling angry, feeling depressed, not knowing what to do. I even started to feel sick, after a month or two of it, like physically ill.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't really have a tool to deal with that. I didn't deal with it in a healthy manner. And then we ended up going back to school, and she did come back to University of Michigan, and we got back together, and it was a tumultuous year after that. But now, the reason I started doing Systema was because I found myself in that place again. A couple years after that, and it wasn't because of a girl. It wasn't because of a situation that I felt I could control externally. It was simply because I had no idea what I was doing, and I was caught in my own tension very personally. And having to deal with that made me realize I can't change someone else right now. Like I can't control a job or a situation or a relationship. This is really on me. And by getting in touch with that and letting go of it and realizing like I have the tools right now to just flip my own mindset to, instead of looking at all the problems, look at all the opportunities, like the good things I can do. That was a great personal lesson that I then was able to carry over into my relationships. And I mean, just to get very personal about it now, when I find myself, getting personally involved with someone, the very first meditation I do about that person and that relationship is I completely let go of them. I realize that this whole relationship is already ended at some point. It has to. That's the whole nature of things. And by accepting that, I'm able to simply embrace every moment I have with that person. And it makes every moment so much more beautiful. And there's no fear about what's going to happen in the future or what could have happened in the past. We're just there together. And, I look back at the times I've been so locked into my own headspace about what this relationship is or what I'm getting out of it or what this other person feels about me. And I realized that if I had just taken that moment to step back, take a deep breath, and just say, hey, I'm not really worried about where this goes. I just want to be there for you right now. I probably would have avoided that whole situation.
Yeah.
That's the perspective now. And for real, I didn't have tools to deal with it for most of my life. And now that I do, it feels so easy and natural and clear. But it was definitely difficult to learn that there's real power in letting go.
Yeah. It's like that anxiety or that depression that someone's experiencing from a situation that's not serving them, such as a breakup, is just adding to the situation instead of just flowing through it and then moving on.
Yeah. And it's making us miss the other opportunities. And a really important underlying concept here is what we look for is what we see. And what we focus on is what we get.
Right.
The first time this sunk in for me, I'm a very physical learner, and it was knife fighting. Because before that, when I was just striking and grappling and, doing wrestling or boxing or jiu-jitsu or Systema for the first few months that I was learning it, I had a tendency to get bruised and take strikes. And someone would go to hit me and I would tense up because I thought I was tougher, Like I thought, I'm tougher than this. I can make it through it. And there's definitely an element of pride there. And the knife was the first thing that, first of all, made me move because I can't take a knife. I have to just move. And then second of all, it made me realize that as I'm watching someone give me that input, give me that stress, if I'm looking at the knife as it's coming in, then I get stabbed every single time. Even if I'm moving away from it, I'm still always just moving away from it. I'm looking at it. It's still there. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile,
it is controlling you.
Exactly. It is determining what I do, where I go. I'm not really free.
Right.
And meanwhile, if I look at the entire person as they're coming in, I see the full attacker's body. I don't even look at the knife. I just see their body in space. Then I can see all the openings around them, all the opportunities, all the places I can move into. And the knife is no longer an object. It's just a tool that's there, and I know to avoid that part of their structure. And there's no holdup, and you don't get stabbed because I'm moving towards areas of freedom, towards areas where I will be safe. And it's the exact same thing psychologically and in a relationship. You know, if we get into an argument with someone, especially someone close to us, and we keep focusing on the problems in that argument, then that's all we're ever going to find. We're going to have to keep dealing with them. But meanwhile, if we take that deep breath and step back and look at the whole person and see how do they feel and what are all the inputs here and what's happening, then we'll see some spaces where it's like, wow, maybe they're just really angry about all sorts of different things. And the best thing I can do right now is just go towards an area that isn't full of anger. Like, do something that just makes them happy right now. And just thinking about our personal interactions in that way totally frees them up. And it makes them just a lot healthier. And honestly, it facilitates growth for both people.
Yeah, this is good. I really like where this whole conversation is going. Now, let's dive into the knowledge round. Just going to ask you some rapid fire questions here.
Sure.
So, Will, are you ready for the knowledge round?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Someday I'll go after my dreams. Someday I'll take action. Wouldn't the world be a better place if we were all inspired? If the world wasn't full of uninspiring people? We're all taught that life is tough. Life is hard. But the awful truth is that life is easy. It's pretty easy to live and do just enough. But truly living, chasing your dreams is hard. What are you dying to do? What is it that lights a fire in your heart? Don't wait till someday to answer this question. There is nothing more important than figuring that out. We're all dying, but if you're not chasing your dream, then you're already dead. Guys, go to kfmretreat.com to apply for my retreat that will change everything. Go to kfmretreat.com to apply and be part of a program that will be a catalyst for redefining your life. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime. All right, first question I have here, Will, is it seems like by you getting into System, like this was your thing. When you dove into this, it spoke to you and it has become a part of you and it's really helped you out in life. And now I'm wondering, what advice would you give to someone who doesn't have that thing that they really want to do? Like if they're feeling lost, if they're feeling unsure of what they should be doing, unsure of their purpose.
Right. And that's a great question. Something we address in Systema often is people start doing it and they think, oh my gosh, this is the way. Like this is the only thing. It's so true. It's so honest. It's so powerful. And then the first sign of someone who has started to mature in Systema is when they start saying, no, I mean, do whatever you want, man. Like do whatever makes you happy. All we're doing here is discovering ourselves. And whatever process is going to lead you to do that, just engage with it. It's running or yoga or music or art or, jobs or business. The bottom line is we all in our lives, we have activities and things that make us feel kind of stagnant and it make us feel kind of like we're spinning our wheels and they make us feel like we don't have that direction or that purpose. I mean, I was definitely stuck in that place for most of my life. But we also have things that challenge us a little and give us a little intrigue. And most importantly, we have things that as we do them, they might make us a little uncomfortable, but they teach us more about ourselves. And they make us grow and they make us take a deep, hard look at ourselves and say, who am I and how can I keep changing and improving? And whatever that is in each and every one of our own lives, I would just say focus on that and focus on it as much as possible. And the other things, if you still have to work and do the job, treat them as a meditation, learn from them too, but really focus on that thing that you love, and it makes you feel like you're discovering yourself because that's where the growth really lies.
Yeah, good. And what was holding you back, Will, from becoming the man you are now today?
I was focusing on the man I thought I wanted to be rather than the man I am. I was raised to be your average, very competitive North American privileged white male growing up in this society. And I was really driven to, at the bank, we would often talk about it like, what's your brand? What's your personal brand? What's your 20-second elevator speech if you're stuck with the CEO? And what that gets people to do is, and at least the way I was operating, it makes us consider ourselves as a character. Like I am this character and my life is kind of like this TV show or series or whatever. And every day I wake up and I'm the star of my show and I interact with other people. And to me, they're just kind of the other characters. And that mere perspective is what was holding me back, because I wasn't really interacting with other people. I was interacting with my image of them, my perception of them. And I wasn't really living my own truth. I was living what I think a successful person looks like. And as soon as I just dived down and said, wait a second, let's let go of the money, let's let go of the girls and the partying and the image and all of that stuff, and ask myself, what do I really want? What's important to me? That's when I found a lot more freedom. And it was because I wasn't held back anymore. I wasn't clinging to that character. I wasn't basically caging myself in. All of a sudden, everything was open, and everything was a possibility.
Yeah, opens up a whole new space there.
Yeah.
And can you name a person who's had a large impact on your life, maybe a mentor? Who is this person, and has there ever been a moment that they shared with you that was really impactful?
Yeah. I mean, since we're on the topic, the guy I really have to thank a lot is, my system instructor in North Carolina, Mark Jacobson. And if he were here, he would be the first person in a very honest, mindful way to say, he's not perfect. I'm not perfect. We all have our flaws and instabilities and things, that areas where we hold ourselves back. But the most important thing he told me was, as I was going through this process of letting go of my fear, letting go of my aggression, which is really just a different form of fear, I started to feel a lot of guilt. And I looked back at my past relationships and I saw all of the points where I added tension to the situation, like where I had an opportunity to let go of whatever was given to me. And instead, I just held on to it and perpetuated an unhealthy cycle.
It's like you're feeding it. It just grows and grows.
Exactly. And I felt a lot of guilt about that, because I was becoming, by letting go of my physical tension is just emotional tension. It's stored there in our body. And when I was letting go of it, I was feeling all of those feelings and remembering those situations and realizing, oh man, I should have let go of this a long time ago. And I talked to him about that and said, something along the lines of, I realize I have to completely change. I have to let go of who I was. And he said, no, don't feel guilty about that. Don't worry about that, because it happened, because it had to happen. You're here now. Like, you're learning from that tension and letting go of it. And most importantly, you can look at those parts of, that drive and that persistence and some of their qualities that were tied into that response, and realize that those aren't bad qualities. We just have to know when to apply them. And it's not all the time. But there are situations where they're very important. And in those situations, it's a hell of a lot better to have them. Like, I was talking about this with him martially, where, I realized I was chasing people. I was way too aggressive. I was like striking into them. I wasn't feeling the situation. I felt guilt about that in one class. And he said, hey, there are moments where you'll need to do that in life. There are moments where you'll need to have that charge. So don't worry about it or feel guilty about it. Just study it and know when to apply it. And it's the same thing psychologically. There are moments where I really defended myself and went overboard, and I didn't need to, and the situation got just messed up because of it. But there are also, situations where you need to do that. And I need to be able to stand there firm in what I believe. So it made me realize the things that have happened in my past and the things that will happen in my future, there's no reason to feel guilty or anxious about them. All I can really do is learn and grow and accept that that's the part of me, and it's something I can control and know when to apply. That really liberated a lot of my thoughts. It was an important lesson to receive.
Yeah, very big lesson.
Yeah.
And now, on this journey, what have been, let's say, 2 of your most influential books, and why?
Great question. The first would probably be The Spiritual Life and How to Be Attuned to It by St. Theophan the Recluse. And basically, he was a Russian Orthodox priest and then monk, and lived in a hermitage at the later years of his life. And the whole book is a series of letters written by a young woman who was in her early 20s, which is, where I was when I began this process. And she went to a university in Moscow and was at a dance, kind of the early Russian equivalent of a frat party, and was looking around at everyone twirling and dancing and drinking in their flashing dresses, and and clothes and realized that there really wasn't a point to any of it. You know, people were just spinning around, and she didn't know why, and no one seemed happy. So she started writing St. Theophan. And the letters they wrote back and forth are the content of this book. And it's basically, you know, she reached out and said, what is the meaning of this? Like, what is the Spirit? What are we here to do? And over the course of their correspondence, he really lays it out in a very beautiful and interesting way. And one of the big lessons I got from that was, you know, first of all, a deeper understanding of what we are, what this universe is, what spirit is. He even uses terms like ether to describe it, which is one of the terms we're starting to use in physics. More importantly, one of his big just the things he put across was that everything that happens to us, it is divinely inspired to give us the best set of circumstances to grow. So we can look at the stress in our life, however big and small, and kind of view it as the weights we've put, you know, on the bench rack. And even under a lot of stress, it's really just a lot of extra weight. And we can lift that. And when we do, we're going to grow a lot more because of it. The other one I actually read before that was The Art of Power by Thich Nhat Hanh. And Thich was a Vietnamese Buddhist monk who was trying to help and save people during the Vietnam War, and was exiled, moved to France, and now has come back, brought Buddhism back to Vietnam. You know, he is a world leader and speaker. And The Art of Power was my first link between, you know, Systema as the martial study and Systema as the form of spiritual growth. And it was simply this book that really laid out in very, very real, practical terms and examples that real power, like true power, doesn't come from, you know, guns or money or wealth or force or strength. It comes merely from being entirely in tune with and in control of ourselves in every single moment, being totally mindful of our emotions, and then deciding from that awareness to only spread love, to really use who we are to affect change in ourselves and the world around us from a place of love. And he lays out example after example of how that not only heals the people around us, but in the end really expands our own sphere of understanding and influence and leads to real power, you know, not just egotistical control. That was definitely an important read for me.
The way you hype it up, I'm definitely going to have to check out The Art of Power, Thich Nhat Hanh. I've looked into some of his other books, and so I'll be checking that out. Now, scenario here for you, Will. Having, you know, you talk a lot about your stories, early 20s growing up, and, you know, you were working in banking, really taking that traditional corporate path. Now, imagine you had 60 seconds with your 20-year-old self right now. You know, what would you tell him to do? And what would you tell him not to do?
That's a really good question. Honestly, I would just give him a hug and tell him that it gets better.
Okay.
That's it. You know, as long as I can remember when I was growing up, you know, whenever I was blowing out birthday candles or, you know, tossing a penny in a well, you know, my only wish was really just to be happy. And I told that to my brother once, and he was like, well, that's depressing. And I'm like, yeah, well, I mean, really, in the end, that was the drive that led me to this, because it made me realize that happiness is a choice. It's not a matter of circumstance. You know, it's not something I can change other things to find. It's something I can just decide to see within myself. And so for my 20-year-old self, I would just want to go back and, you know, stoke that fire a little, just give a little hope and say, hey, it gets better. And that's about it.
Yeah, that's good. I've heard it a few times, and it's like sometimes you got to go through the journey.
Yeah,
sometimes you got to go through the journey. Otherwise, the lesson, the challenge, the wisdom gained from that challenge, you know, it wouldn't be there.
Yeah, no, it's very much a real part of who I am and what I am, and I'm very grateful for that story. You know, there was a lot of pain, but hey, there's always going to be pain, and the real work. You know, and this is what we do in Systema and in Zen warrior training and any form of studying this art. The work isn't avoiding pain completely. It's learning to let go of it. And how quickly can you do that? And all of those lessons, I view them as just exercises, just little meditations that occurred throughout my life. And in the end, really taught me a valuable lesson.
Yeah. Very good stuff here. And so we're going to wrap up the knowledge round here. Just want to see if you have any last parting piece of guidance for the audience before we kind of just go into more about, what you're doing today.
Right. Sure. I would just like to reiterate that happiness is a choice, and it's not a circumstance. It's not something we can change or control to find. And along with that, to clarify a little, again, what we look at is what we see. And what we search for is what we find. And if we are every day looking at our problems and seeing the things that are holding us back, then that's what we'll continue to have. And if instead we take a step back and just say, hey, what do I have right now to be happy about? Or what do I have to be grateful about? How am I free right now? And we really answer those questions honestly, then happiness is already there. And it's within us, and it's available in every moment.
Yeah. Okay. Really good. That's going to wrap up the knowledge round there. And so, Will, what's getting you out of bed in the morning? What's really exciting you?
What's really exciting me right now?
Yep. Yeah.
Everything. Life. I have worked, honestly, about 14 hours or more every single day since mid-April, with the exception of going back to Michigan for a week for a wedding. And you know what? I feel physically tired at the moment, but at the same time, there's just this energy and light moving through everything that is not only driving me, but the thing I'm most excited about is every single week I'll meet someone and start a business relationship, and then all of a sudden they'll come back to me and say, hey, I met this other person who apparently you're already working with. And it's just like watching, the Life Special Forces team assemble. It's so cool right now in everything from Zen Warrior training to Systema to a festival benefiting a nonprofit for young women who have been sex trafficked, and then into playing kirtans and, violin. I'm starting to play more concerts and then meeting more friends. It just feels like right now is a gathering point in life for so many people that are going to continue to working together over the next few years to facilitate this growth and process. And it's just really, it's time consuming. It is physically demanding and mentally stressful. But when I take a step back and see the big picture of what's happening, it's just beautiful. And I'm really excited about it right now.
All right. And Will, go ahead and give yourself a plug on how the audience can follow up with you moving forward.
Right. Thank you so much. So there are two options that would be great here. One is definitely go to zenwarriortraining.com. And really, again, it's a time constraint right now, but the whole reason I am here is because this art and the light it brought into my life healed me. And while learning it and teaching it and growing with it, I've seen people come in with, incredible PTSD. And within a few months, their symptoms are gone. I've seen people lose weight and change their lives. And most importantly, I haven't watched them really struggle to do that. And the whole process has been healing and transformative. And I'm basically here to help people become more self-aware. And as a society, we have a huge need for that right now. And, from the retreat I went to with you and the people I know who follow this podcast and what you're doing, I think we're all doing the same thing. We're healing ourselves to facilitate that same healing in the world and everyone around us. And the more we work together on that, the better off we'll be and the more effective.
Yeah.
So, thank you for what you do. And I'm always available to help.
All right. Thank you so much, Will, for sharing your story, being vulnerable here on the show and sharing some of your life lessons here with my audience. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the opportunity. And thanks for reaching out. It's really important. And the more that we can all allow ourselves to be vulnerable and put ourselves out there, the more accepted we find ourselves being by everyone around us. We all appreciate love and humility. And as soon as we start acting from it, it's pretty apparent.
Very powerful. All right, well, we'll wrap it up here, and I'll put the cut right here. Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and 1 million downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement, and we've just started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a review in iTunes. It really helps to grow the podcast. Guys, 2015 is the official year of living with purpose, where every day you do only the things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. Check out kfmfree.com to get free tools I've created to help you crush life. Again, that's kfmfree.com. This is your host, Andrew Fairby, and I'll see you in the next episode.